bigspur.com to find out what John Whittle is writing about, which is a lot. Right now, Carolina is about to wind down fall camp. Gamecock baseball will be here in the Lowcountry this week to take on Chad Holbrook and the College of Charleston Cougars. Get your tickets on the Carolina GamecocksOnline.com website or CFC Sports. 6 o'clock Thursday evening. Basketball tips off tonight. As you can see, John's not out in Vegas covering the women or anything like that. I'm sure he'll be over at the CLA tonight covering the men as North Florida hit the hardwood against Lamont Paris and his Gamecocks. And let's see, what else is there, John? Oh, football. Gamecocks trounced the Aggies 44-20 Saturday night. They say if it ain't swaying, we ain't playing. That place was on fire. Was it moving up there in the press box?
It was, especially early in the game. One of our Texas A&M writers made that remark on social media, but definitely huge atmosphere. And we in the press box, we don't really get to experience it. It's closed off, got windows and all that stuff. But I've heard from so many people that it was one of the, if not the best environment that they've been in. So, those are big words with games like a couple of those Georgia games in the past with the Ace Sanders punt return and the Quincy Carter interceptions and Eric Kimrey's toss against Mississippi State. There have been some loud crowds, but apparently this one was really, really good.
I know I always get a little, I don't know what the word is, apprehensive or something when I say, it's the best atmosphere ever. I mean, I've been going to games there for 35 years, man. I've seen some, I don't know. It's hard to put them all and compare them all, but it was one of the best. There's no doubt. It was one of the best. I don't know if it was the best or not. For the second straight week, South Carolina got off to an excellent start. John, what's going on there? What have they been doing to make sure that happens?
That's a great question. I mean, they've gone out there and just not made mistakes and executed. I certainly think that bye week helped, and having Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders healthy throughout the bye week helped. Dowell Loggins or Shane Beamer's talked about it a little bit. They cleaned some things up, did some things a little bit differently, and made some adjustments to what they were doing offensively, and everything worked, everything clicked. And nothing that happens on defense should be a surprise to anybody at this point.
No, those guys. All right, let's Mike, I want you're a national guy, so I want to make sure that you're involved in this. I personally speaking, have thought for a few weeks now that at the end of the season, when it comes to All-Americans, Kyle Kennard is an All-American. I think Nick Eamon-Warry is an All-American. My guy is OD. I've been on OD's team for a long time. I'm not so sure how you have an All-American team without O'Donnell Fortune. Can anybody name one corner in college football that has played better than him this year? Name one.
Who? First off, the first two guys you mentioned, I don't think there's any question are going to be All-Americans. There's a Pro Football Focus guy who in the game against was it Ole Miss, the last home game before this one? I'm missing.
The last home game?
The last home game. So Oklahoma's on the road, and then before that,
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. Mm-hmm.
So it was a game that was lost in the shuffle because it was a lopsided game. But Eamon-Warry made a play where Ole Miss had a guy catch the ball, and it was streaking down the sideline, and Eamon-Warry did not have the angle and chased him down at 6'3", whatever. And basically the Pro Football Focus guy said, this is why people are talking about him as potentially a late first-round pick now. Like, he is climbing boards. Anyway, that's NFL draft. But you mentioned the All-American question. The first two, yeah. Is there another? I'd have to look at it. I mean, there's certainly talented corners that don't even reside in the SEC that we might not be thinking of.
Sure.
But to your point, he's had an outstanding year. Like the play, the pick against Oklahoma, where he comes out of the picture. Basically, he's not even in the screen.
Out of the stands.
Yeah, like that's a next level play. that most of the corners in college football do not make. So, yeah, I think when it's all said and done, the all SEC defense is going to be littered with Carolina guys. And when we look at when we look at these players 2-3 years from now, you're going to see a lot of guys playing on Sunday. I don't think that's hyperbole.
I agree 100%. John, we mentioned that at the beginning of the year. If these guys are as good as we think they can be, you what you don't want, right, is to look back in like 3 years. Let's call it 3 years, because you got to move freshmen, sophomore, juniors through. You don't want to look back in 3 or 4 years and say that team won 6 games and there's 11 dudes playing in the NFL. They were all what happened there? But I don't know, man. If it keeps going this way, they sure as hell aren't going to win just 6. It could be a special November.
Yeah, absolutely. You're exactly right. And, assuming South Carolina keeps winning a few more games, it's going to be, largely because of, what they've done on defense over the course of the season. And, JC has been on this defense for a long time. I was a little bit skeptical coming into this year that they would live up to some of the heavy words that were being thrown around about them. I thought they'd be good. I'm not saying I thought that it was going to be a poor defensive team. I thought they'd be pretty good, but I didn't see anything like this coming like some of you other guys have. And, so many of these guys have just played way above what I ever thought they could. I don't think there's anybody on that defense who you can say, he probably should be playing a little bit better. Or he hasn't played as well as he should, or not living up to expectations. These guys, to a man, have played really well and really consistently all year long. So it's been really impressive to watch just the consistency of the group. They haven't, knock on wood or whatever, if you believe in jinxes. I mean, these guys haven't laid an egg this year. I mean, they've done their job time in and time out.
The last 4 games, John, that they've played in, some pretty good offenses in there. A&M led the league in points per game against SEC competition, on the road at Oklahoma, on the road at Alabama, at home against Ole Miss. They have allowed 22 total points in the second half. That is 5.5 points per game that they've given up in the second half in those last 4. That's something. Lenoris, let's shift it to the offensive side of the football. I think we've already asked you this like 6 times this year, so why not ask it a 7th? How about the development of Lenoris Sellers from week 1 to week whatever the hell this is, especially when you compare it to the rest of the young quarterbacks in the league?
Yeah, I mean, is what you want. Is what you want. And I've been saying this really all year long, is you just want to see consistent growth from the guy. And you have to win games along the way, but you got to understand that there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be poor games. There's going to be moments. It's not going to be perfectly linear upward trajectory for a guy, but you want to see continued growth. And, it just keeps happening. And, I think that missing so much time early in the year, like he did, was detrimental to his development, and it put him behind a little bit. And then you go out there and you go on the road to Alabama, and you're playing a great defense, and you go on the road to Oklahoma and play a great defense, and the more you go through it, the more accustomed and better you become at it. And he's just continually getting better. I mean, and the trajectory, to be honest, for me is better than I thought it would be. I've been really pleased with his growth over the course of the year in every facet of the game, decision making, playmaking, whatever you want to come up with. I've been really pleased with how it's gone.
I gotta. Okay, JC, which stat are you about to bring into play? Is it Hales?
I'm not on. I didn't get this from X. I got it from my email. It's about the company that he's in.
That was Hale. Hale did the. I got to give Hale the credit now. Hale put this out early yesterday. Go ahead.
Oh no! It's good. My bad. No, according to the release from USC from Coach Stink, as we like to call him around here.
Yeah. I just got it. They better credit Hale McGranahan on
that. I don't think it did, but that's okay. It's all right. So there's been 5 quarterbacks to lead their teams to 500-plus yards against the Aggies during the last decade, okay? Those guys are Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Tua Tagovailoa, and Bryce Young.
And Lenoris Sellers. Yeah, it's a remarkable stat. I'll add to that. just announced, guys, 3 University of South Carolina football players recognized by the league this week. Sellers, probably no shock, right, that he was named the SEC's Freshman of the Week. Alex Herrera named the Special Teams Player of the Week, or co-special teams, because, this is the SEC. Why would we only give it to one player? But this is good for them. Torricelli Simpkins III, right guard, named the SEC's Offensive Lineman of the Week. He graded out at 88%, 6 pancake blocks, and 3 knockdowns. Carolina needed their offensive line, John, to play well, and led by the SEC's Offensive Lineman of the Week, and some magic by Lenore Sellers back there. Largely, they did.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the group played really well, especially from a run blocking standpoint. I mean, obviously Lenore's made a bunch of plays to get out of sacks, but that's why you have guys like Lenore's, right? Like, that's why you recruit them. That's why they're so valuable, is because they make other players around them better or make them look better. And, that Lenore's did that with the offensive line this week. And, some of these guys played their best games too. I felt like, I thought Case and Henry did a nice job. I think Vershawn got beat a few times inside, but he also delivered some very menacing blocks as well. I just Lenore's deserves a lot of credit for helping those guys out in the pass game, but those guys run block tremendously. I mean, there were sometimes multiple holes. I mean, I've watched more plays around here where you have nowhere to go and get hit behind the line of scrimmage than I've seen plays with multiple holes. That's for dang sure. And, I thought Rocket and Lenore's both did a really nice job of finding the spot to hit. And, I was just impressed offensively from beginning to end, and offensive line certainly included.
John, it's the whole country, I think, after Saturday night, like you look at like the faces of the sport, right? Who've been paying attention. And obviously they have been paying attention. It's hard to imagine that guys who are on ESPN and CBS and everywhere else are going to give all this attention to a 5-3 football team unless they know what it's been through, like the Gamecocks. And so now there's a lot of people that believe tomorrow night. We talked to Mike about this earlier. We believe they're going to be ranked in the top 25 when the playoff rankings are revealed tomorrow night. If anybody's going to be watching that, there is an election tomorrow. In case anybody was wondering, whatever. But I think a lot of people now understand South Carolina is a really, really, really good football team, right? And for the first time in how long? I don't know how long, maybe ever, since Vanderbilt and the Gamecocks have been playing. Like, normally when one or the other teams, I mean, Carolina's got a long winning streak, 14 or 15 straight against the Commodores right now, but nobody ever sneaks up on the other one, but if they do win the game, it's because they did sneak up on them. That's not the matchup we're looking at this week. Like, you might have a top 25 Vanderbilt hosting South Carolina, who's also in the top 25. I don't know what all it says or doesn't say. I don't know. But I just find it incredibly neat that these two programs have done what they've done to be able to make this game as valuable as it's going to be here in November.
Yeah, usually when South Carolina is playing Vanderbilt, it's just to be 100% certain that they don't finish last in the East. And this time it's a big matchup. I've written this like the last 5 years. Okay, so people are going to get mad at me for jinxing the Gamecocks. No, it's just not a thing. But every SEC East team, I know there's no more East now, but every SEC East team has lost to Vanderbilt multiple times since South Carolina has. That's Vandy, his loss to Vandy since South Carolina has. I mean, that's Georgia, that's Florida, that's Tennessee. Tennessee's lost to them. Tennessee's lost to them 4 times since South Carolina has lost. 5 times since South Carolina has lost to Vanderbilt. So, it's kind of impressive what South Carolina's done. They've got the longest winning streak of any team in the SEC now that Alabama lost. So, is South Carolina's had good success against them, but this is a different Vandy team. But I caught pieces of the first hour, and I agree with what JC and Mike were saying about how I think this is a game where South Carolina is just going to go out and be a better team and win again.
Mike, I want to I'm anxious to get your thoughts on this. I've been waiting to ask you about this. Do you think this is one of those weeks where although TV did everything they could at the beginning, they're giving the windows, the kick time windows, which we're all very thankful for. I like that, by the way. But do you think this is one of those times where they're like, I don't know, maybe we need to reevaluate some things, because you got this game on the SEC network at 4:15, Florida and Texas at noon on ABC, Mississippi State at Tennessee at 7:00 on ESPN Saturday night. That's going to be a debacle in Knoxville. This has actually got a chance to be a good game.
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, not unlike the CBS deal, if you're wondering why was Georgia Vandy on CBS that a couple of times, because it's kind of encouraged. I don't know if it's like written in the rule book. You try to get equal representation. You try to throw everybody a bone. So South Carolina's had ABC now, 4 times?
Yeah, I think 4 or 5. Yeah.
It's incredible exposure. So that's one thing, is to kind of share the wealth a little bit, right? And the other thing is, then a lot of these matchups, and I just came from a seminar, and they did a whole thing on brand recognition and who's a brand, who's not a brand. And certainly Carolina's brand has improved immensely over the years, but Vanderbilt has not. So while Vanderbilt's a great story, Vanderbilt does not equal ratings. Whereas a couple of the other games you mentioned, like Florida, Texas, those are 2 brands. I don't think it's going to be a very competitive game, but it's 2 brands. Tennessee is a brand. Mississippi State, not so much, but a bigger brand than Vandy. And then like Alabama, LSU, for example, people might say, I mean, that's a play-in game. That's like a de facto playoff game.
Yeah.
So that kind of speaks for itself. But yeah, if you were to just go on merit, I'm like, what's the most competitive game? And 2 of the best stories right now in the league, I'm with you. It's South Carolina and Vanderbilt. It just doesn't fit the calculus of what they were looking for.
Yeah, makes all the sense in the world. It makes total sense, to be honest. John, back to your point you were a minute ago, agreeing with Jace, or agreeing with, who do you agree with? You agree with Mike, based on what he's.
It was one big agreement, right, John? I mean, we're all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was everybody. Phil too. You as well.
Yeah, Phil.
Well, yeah,
we're all of one accord there. Sure, yeah,
yeah. I agree with what Mike had to say earlier, but like looking forward to the game in Nashville, but and it's all due respect to Vanderbilt. Like, I like Vanderbilt. I like what they're about. I like the story. How do you not like Clark Lee? I don't want to tee up JC here. So we'll have to hear 20 minutes about this kill zone and all this stuff. So we're not going to really go down that road, but we'll get the point across that we all have a lot of respect for the Commodores. But I don't like the matchup for them against this South Carolina team.
Right. And I'm with you. And, here's the thing about it is, Shane Beamer talked about how Texas A&M is kind of similar to South Carolina. Like their programs are built kind of on the same thing. And, I think Vanderbilt has done some things that are very similar. So I think they're similar programs in what they're trying to be. South Carolina and Vanderbilt and Texas A&M. I think Vandy plays with a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder, maybe, than because of who they are and what they are and who their leader is at quarterback. And I think that's served them well. Whereas South Carolina, I don't think they necessarily have to have a chip on their shoulder to play like they are. But yeah, I mean, I do think that the styles in a lot of ways are similar, in at least the attitude and the mindset in a lot of ways are similar. The approach is similar. But I think South Carolina is just a little bit better. So, when you have 2 teams of similar styles, like, who has the better players, right? So, I think that's South Carolina in this instance.
I think I might be in the minority on this one, but if Missouri has a healthy Brady Cook 2 weeks from now, that's the more difficult game. than Vandy on the road, in my opinion. I know Vandy's having a better season in some respects, and they're a better story in some people are labeling Missouri disappointment. JC can tell you I was not high on Missouri coming into this year. I thought their defense would take a step back. It has. I thought their running game would take a step back. It has. But I still think athletically they pose more problems than Vanderbilt does. I just think Vandy is going to be overwhelmed by this Gamecock defense on Saturday, and no matter how they try to, trick and fool and get creative, I don't think it works against this defense.
Missouri beats Oklahoma. They're still going to be 7-2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, they're not a bad team by any stretch. They're just not a playoff team.
You just don't feel like they're as good as that record. But, yeah, it should be interesting. But, I think South Carolina athletically, if the Gamecocks did not have the speed on defense they did, I'd say, my goodness, that's going to be a tough one. But, turnover margin in the last two games is 6-1 too. And Lenore Sellers has none.
Yeah. Well, I do think that an important moment in that game Saturday night, guys, was the holding call that negated the fumble right before half, and Carolina was able to kick the field goal. John, you remember that? They swatted the ball out of Sellers' hand there. That's just what kind of like, remember going back to the Kentucky game, got a couple of breaks there, and it just kind of worked out. Now, I'm not saying that South Carolina wouldn't have still won the game. They might have, they might not have, but I did think that was a moment that's really not been talked about a bunch that ended up going Carolina's way. For sure.
I mean, South Carolina's had a lot of moments like that go against them this year, whether it's, the LSU game and returning the interceptions for touchdowns or heck, you even had the interception called back when O'Donnell Fortune apparently stepped out of bounds. I'm still not sure about that one, but yeah, I mean, that was could have been a huge turning point because, South Carolina talked about how they felt good, going into halftime after scoring those points. It was a nice drive down there. I mean, it was helped by a couple of penalties, obviously, but it was certainly a nice drive and a little bit of extra boost going into the locker room. We had so I know the fan base was very disappointed at blowing that early lead and going in on the precipice of going into halftime, down after being up 14-0 at the snap of a finger early in the game. But being able to get that field goal going into halftime, I think was certainly huge for the psyche of everybody. You're Shane Beamer, you're in the locker room saying, all right, it's 0-0. Let's go out and play our game and we'll win this one. And that's what happened.
Yeah, it was. There have been some strange plays this year, man. Maybe it's recency bias, or maybe it's because of how impactful they've been in the ball games. But I don't feel like I can remember a year where there's been so many plays that are, wow, very impactful and wonky. I watched the replay last night. You're talking about OD's pick yesterday or on Saturday. You didn't think he was out of bounds. It looked to me like he was, but I was in the game.
I mean, it was close. I mean, they only showed one replay, or they showed one replay from each angle, and one angle it looked like he was out, and the other one it looked like he might have been in. So I don't know. It was difficult to tell. But to your point, like, and Mike, and I don't think I brought this up last week, and Mike can probably chime in on this. Like, I mean, South Carolina has played some of the most exciting games in college football this year.
No doubt.
I mean, whether like that LSU game, just entertainment from start to finish. That Alabama game was entertainment from start to finish. Like, even when South Carolina's been on the wrong side of it, they've played some games that have been some of college football's best all year long. And, it's been a really entertaining season for anyone watching. Gamecocks are getting their money's worth this year.
I mean, a couple of them have been heartbreakers, but they've all been wildly entertaining, which is, again, that's what all the TV cares about. And so they've gotten their money's worth out of every Gamecock game. And when it's a home game, the environment's going to be second to none. John, I have a question, because we talked about leading in this offensive line and going up against a guy like Scorton, who was phenomenal all year long, and Shamar Stewart when he's not picking up multiple personal foul penalties is a problem to block. Like they spent a lot of that money, that NIL money, on picking up key guys, and yet the offensive line really neutralized them. So what is it, if anything, other than just more starts under your belt, that they're doing differently to get better week by week?
I mean, I thought they diversified the run game a little bit this week, which I thought was helpful. As y'all mentioned in that first hour, they really leaned on Josh Simon a good bit, and took advantage of him. On those little tight end slip out, whether it's a little screen or just a little drag route, getting lost out there somehow. I thought that those were very big and helpful things. And, Shane, and I asked Shane about it specifically, and he said, before the Oklahoma game that those guys were just tired of getting whipped, more or less, that those guys were just ready to show that they belonged and show that they were good. And, I don't know why that's a thing, or why there needs to be a flip in mindset from that standpoint. But, they played relatively well for the most part against Oklahoma, and, they played better, this past week too. But, I think, getting Lenoris out there and running the football a little bit more, and having a lead blocker from time to time, whether it was Michael Smith or Oscar Attaway or Rocket Sanders or whoever, I thought was a big deal. But I mean, those guys, for whatever reason, have just won their one-on-one battles more often here these last couple of games than what they were doing early.
I think this too. Torricelli Simpkins, who won the Lineman of the Week award, that dude can pull. Like, and Beamer did mention they ran the pin and pull. That phrase got popularized around here when Muschamp was here, because that was a lot of the offense with both McClendon and Bobo with Rico Dowdle, and they run it quite a bit. We haven't seen it as much under Dowell Loggins, but Torricelli can play that game because he's light-footed. He can get out and get in front, and then he obliterates people when he's got a full head of steam and can engage. I thought that was huge, and then I thought the downfield blocking was good as well. But that was something that they've run sometimes, but not all the time. And then getting Sellers out on the perimeter on designed runs, I thought that's something that should have happened a while back. Yeah. I mean, you think about how to defend South Carolina now. You got to worry about Rocket, but then you got to worry about Lenoris hitting the edge. And then you got to worry about him throwing it to Josh Simon if he's not running. That's a lot to think about if you're a defense. But I thought, John, I mean, don't you agree? I think Torricelli's pretty good at pulling.
Yeah, and I would say that that's a unique trait for this offensive line too. Like, I think most of these guys are a little bit heavy-footed, but I think Simpkins is good from that standpoint. I think Josiah Thompson is pretty good from that standpoint, and will only get better. But I think that's why they don't run a whole lot of screens, running back screens. I think is why they have kind of stayed away from doing that a whole lot, because I don't know that these offensive linemen are quite athletic enough and quite as good in space as maybe you would like to be able to run some of the types of plays offensively that, sometimes you want to run.
Well, they ran some screens on Saturday and they happened to work. Final quick thoughts here, John, on what you'll be paying attention to this week for the trip to Nashville for the Gamecocks against the Commodores. And then you got basketball tipping off tonight. Baseball scrimmages today at 3:45. That's just been adjusted from 4 to 3:45, and then they're coming down to Charleston. So give us your thoughts on all that as well.
Yeah, busy. Probably next week or so, and I think today, I need to double check on this. I think today is going to be the last scrimmage at Founders Park. Then they'll do the scrimmage on Thursday, and I think that is going to be it. I don't know that with 100% certainty. They were planning on doing a Garnet and Black World Series game next Tuesday, but I think they've kind of hit the wall over there. So I think this might be it today. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly been a productive fall for the Gamecocks on the baseball field. They got a bunch of guys banged up. Super excited about getting out there to see Lamont Paris and those guys tonight. There was a lot of good from the exhibition game. Some guys, especially older guys, need to play a little bit better, now that the real season is here, than they did in the exhibition. I think they've got enough guys over there to I don't know that you need to tweak the starting lineup from what it was, but if it isn't working again, they've got plenty of guys who can come in and help. That starting lineup from the exhibition didn't work so good. So looking forward to seeing what they do over there tonight. And it's obviously a huge week for South Carolina football with Vandy, and see how they tackle Diego Pavia and those guys.
Well, John, safe travels to Nashville. It's one of the great cities in America. So you've got a long week. Charleston, Nashville, and then we'll see you on Monday again here on ITG. Always appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, long week, fun week, but should be should be good. Thank you all for having me.
Hopefully the weather.
Cowboy bars.
By the way, the weather is not looking good for Thursday down here in the Low Country.
No, I saw that.
Yeah, it ain't looking good at all. But hopefully it clears up. I'm bringing the kids, so we'll see you there. I'll get with you before the ball game. Thanks, man.
Sounds great. I've got a box of coffee mugs for you too.